Good morning and welcome to part 3 of this Vivaro and Trafic build. You've already seen me get gearboxes and things across. I've actually taken out inlet manifolds and exhaust manifolds and things. Started to strip a few bits for people who are looking bits. And moving on to this, so we already had this built up and starting. So what I've done is I've removed the front plastic panel again, and what I'm going to start to do is get this engine mounting off. I've already got the trolley jack underneath to support the weight of the engine. So the plan today is get the engine mounting off here, a few bolts in the top, 17s and 16s I think in that one. And then I'm going to take the cover off and we're going to have a wee look and see if we can see timing marks. Make some timing marks up as well, just to double check everything, and hopefully get this timing belt done in a few hours and back together. And really that's it then for the mechanical side of it. Also going to do the fuel straps underneath it, hold the fuel tank up. This one had failed its MOT on that, and I bought them and put them onto it. So this one here then I'm going to use. They're a bit rusty looking, so when I have the parts there again, of course, I'm going to swap them over. So we'll get this mounting off and I'll just come back and touch back in again with a few wee cut-ins. We'll see with the timing marks. We'll get a look at the belt, the condition of the belt. And I'm just thinking I actually need to get an auxiliary belt for this. Again, I might just, for today, take this one, which you can't see because it's actually quite good looking. I think somebody's replaced it, and then I'll replace this because this is very easy to do. This is a 15-20 minute job. So if I can't get any, because it's a bank holiday, I might not be able to get any car parts places open today. We'll see what happens. So I'll go ahead, no point in filming this, basically just going to drop these bolts out, lift the mounting off, and I'll come back and show you what clearance I have and as we're pulling that off. Okay, so what I've done, taking the mounting off here, took the bolts off, the 3 bolts, and took the side bolt off, give me access. Also had 10mm bolts in the side here of the wee material trim, and obviously taking the radiator off, drained the water again. Now the front of this engine, there's a small little star-headed bolt. It's like a reverse torque. Now I'm sort of cheating here a bit. I should have a pin kit in there, but with today being a bank holiday, none of the car places are open, and I've actually made do with a bit of a homemade thing here, which seems to have worked, because looking around here, now I've recolored these, but I know the pump isn't generally timed in this. However, it did have marks from before. I also have a cutout here on top of the engine itself, lines up with that pulley again, previously marked. And down at the bottom, I've taken the big pulley off down here, and I've got a cutout here, and it's all perfectly lined up. So that is the timing line now, and ready to remove the belt. Very restricted for space, but with the engine lowered down here, it's allowing me to get at it. So next step, I'm going to loosen off the water pump, and I'm going to take the adjustment off the belt and take the belt off. We'll have a look at the belt together. I've already seen some really obvious damage on it. It's been torn, so I'm glad I'm doing it. But I'll take the belt off now and we'll have a look at it compared to the new one and the associated tensioners and bits and pieces that come with it. So just to show you the contents of the time belt kit that's going in, just so you get an idea. So this is a tensioner, moves like this, puts the tension on, and then you tighten the bolt. There's a 10mm, I'll fit to that, and that actually screws it and adjusts it and pushes it where I need to push it. So that at the minute is what's holding the tension on the belt. It's pushed in like this. Belt runs around the back of it, and that is putting the pressure on it. So when I loosen it off, it's going to take the pressure off and allow the belt off. The water pump is joined on. Again, a belt runs around this, feeds that fan. That pumps the water into your engine whenever the engine's running. So failure of that sometimes in cars, water pump can be plastic. This one's metal. Some cars they're plastic, and whenever your car freezes, if you've no antifreeze in it, the ice builds up here and breaks all the little blades. So even though this is turning, it'll not be doing anything. And that's quite a common thing that happens. Also over time, this pulley just loosens and you start to get a bit of water seeping down between the gap in here. There's a burn in that, and then just over use it'll start to vibrate, slide forward, like back and forward like that, and you'll start to get fluid coming out of it. So very important that that's replaced, especially when you're in here doing this job. The gasket for that comes with it, and then the belt, and this belt has white lines on it and also has arrows for direction. So what we're going to be looking to do is, when we put it in, we're going to line the white lines up with our white lines in there, and that's going to give us hopefully perfect timing. But it looks good so far. So just very limited by space. You can actually see just in there, you can't even see, hang on a sec. So just at the bottom, if I can shine this light up, just where that light is sitting, touching, that's the bolt. It won't focus. That's your tensioner. And then in here is the water pump. You can see the belt running around it. So very limited by space. So again, we're not going to be able to see, but now you'll know what I'm talking about. So the next step is I'm going to take the tension off the belt, remove the water pump, seal it back in with some of the paper sealer and probably a bit of my own gasket stuff that I have, and then replace the belt. My dad's away at the minute. He's going to get me some thread locker, which I didn't have, just for putting the bolts back on. And also we're going to get the auxiliary belt off here for the power steering. So that is your alternator, and your power steering pump is here. So that's why when it snaps, you'll lose your power steering, you'll lose your alternator, you'll get a battery light on. It's a common thing. You'll see belts lying on the road. People ignore them. They crack and split. The other one's away, I can't even show you. It was okay condition. As you can see with the timing belt, that's what I was trying to tell you. Chunks coming out of it. So it was ready to go. And that's before I even take it out and stretch it. So very, very important. Your timing belt, because these are all timed, the timing, the whole purpose of it is everything in the engine has to sit and line up with the same things. If this snaps and things inside the engine hit, that's the end of the engine. It just destroys it. So very, very important. Always do your timing belts. Do them at the service intervals. Or if you don't do the mileage that it says, just remember it's only rubber. It deteriorates. It gets oil and it gets different things on it. It's getting heat and cold. So even after an amount of time, you should be replacing them. Never mind the mileage. So just very important. But you know what I'm talking about then when I'm referring to things. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to loosen this off. I'm not going to be able to video it, but I'll show you the old pump out and the tensioner out and the belt off, and then we'll get the new one fitted up and hopefully get it back together again. So not too bad when I had it all stripped down to here, but I'll tell you that once it's all finished. Okay, so timing belt's off, and as you can see, there's chunks missing out of it. Bit hanging off there. No idea how somebody managed to do that if it wasn't right on the pulley. Starting to split, you can see there. If I focus, it's virtually, it's breaking, it's snapping. It was on the way, like that was going to be catastrophic failure of the engine. So very important, get your belts checked, get them done. And I know they're expensive at the time. You know, this could be 300 odd quid, 400 quid's worth by the time you buy the belt, pay somebody the labour. But at the end of the day, it's quite awkward, it's quite time consuming, and there is a skill to it. You want somebody that's doing it right for you. So can't emphasize enough how important it is to get that done and get it done when it's required, because you don't get a second chance for that whenever it snaps. Okay, so here's the old water pump. Looking at it, it's been there for a while. Obviously then the gasket for it. You can see the new one going in. And also the old tensioner under there, which has been removed. So They've both been removed from the side of the engine. You can see that was where the water pump was. Tensioner was just a bit off to the side. So I'll clean that up. And just what I was saying earlier on, anybody that's done a time belt will understand, but these don't come with a 10mm nut or 10mm bolts. So as you put the 10mm bolt on, it actually moves the tension onto this. So that's how we're going to adjust the tension and get it sitting where I want it to sit. And then you tighten the big nut on at the top. So going pretty good now that everything's out. So I'll clean down the engine, clean this red. There's been a bit of gasket put onto that as well as the actual gasket itself. So I'll clean down the engine block in there, get it ready to receive the new part, get the surfaces clean and put the new tensioner on. And then I'll come back and just show you them fitted and we'll start putting the belt back on. So once you get to this stage and everything's timed, it's quite straightforward and when everything's stripped. Now I did take the mounting out of here, which gives me access to the side, and I'm having to jack the engine up and down, but to be honest, not too bad so far. Everything's going to plan, so I'll keep at it here. We'll put these new adjusters and things on, and we'll take a look at it before it all goes back together. Okay, so new water pump fitted on tensioner, just past it. I'll show you from underneath. As you can see there, that's the water pump. Put it in, a wee bit of gasket, the new gasket around, a wee bit of gasket sealer just to double up, make sure, and also the tensioner. So that's it, ready to put the belt back on, and we'll check. Obviously the timing marks are still where they're supposed to be there. So we'll get that back on and we'll have a look and see, make sure everything's tight, and then do a bit of adjustment on the belt. Okay, so belt is back on. Now, like I said earlier on, I did mark this fuel pump. I didn't need to, but I just did it out of a sort of matter of course. Belt's on. That is the factory, that comes on the belt, that white line, so it ties up perfectly with my white line. And also down on the pulley, I have the white line there, and you'll see the white line there. So that's everything back on. I've also did it's going to be awkward to see, in here, tensioner's done with a bit of Loctite over it, and with a 10mm you can see where I adjusted it out, put the tension on it, and then just to the side you can see the water pump. So water pump's all on, everything's tightened, and pretty happy with where everything's sitting. So next step is I'll get the big pulley on the bottom again, fit it onto here. Torque up the nut, and we'll turn the engine over a couple of times by hand just to make sure nothing's touching. However, I'm 100% sure it won't be because of the timing line's all perfect. So not too bad, no real difficulties, just access. And as I say, definitely pull that mounting out, and that allows you to jack the engine up and down to get at bits and pieces. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get the bottom pulley up, turn over a few times, and then we'll start putting it back together again. Okay, so I've got all the belts on, all the covers on, all the mountings back on. You can see new auxiliary belt on there. All the tensioners have been redone, Loctite on everything, covers on there so you can't see anything. I have put the like I say, put all the mountings back on at the back, and I've also put the intercooler on here just for a minute. So what I'll do is I'll give it a start, and just you hold that a sec. Get your dad to hold the camera, and hopefully. So as you can see, that's it all running back to the way it was, if not better, hopefully. And I'm going to continue on now, build up the rest of the front panel. That's actually the Renault panel, I've just noticed. So I'll put the Vauxhall one on, put the radiator into it, and get everything back together and get it on its wheels, and hopefully take it for a wee test drive up the yard, make sure that everything's getting all the gears, and that should be it. Took a few hours, probably be quicker the next time if I had to do it, but no special tools really. Of course the pin here that I was using would have been the most, or the screwdriver I was using wasn't ideal, and probably the proper pin kit for it would have made things a wee bit easier, but that's it done. So we'll continue on building up and come back to you and hopefully see it outside. Okay, so you can see in the time lapse what we're doing now is getting the bumper impact bar put on. That's just some bolts, 4 bolts holding in each side, nuts and bolts. And again, that's the crash protection. That's what's actually in behind the plastic cover of your bumper. That's what does the absorbing and stops anybody from it crumpling up if anybody reverses or drives into you. So we do that, and then put the proper plastic modular piece on top. We're putting that on. That's again 4 bolts holding that on. Connecting up the intercooler, the 2 intercooler pipes, then very simple, just put them on, and then there's like a brace runs between the impact bar and the modular piece, the plastic piece. So get that put on as well, and that just makes sure it's more all solid whenever you go to slam the bonnet and stuff on the front panel. That keeps it all nice and strong and where it should be. And then also I was looking at the plastic trims, so you'll see us put on the trims a couple of times and off. The Trafic had a different bumper on it, so the different trims go underneath it. They didn't work with the Vivaro, so we were just checking to see what we could use and what we didn't, what we couldn't use basically. And that's what we're doing, going through that. But between the two of us, everything on, the lights and things put back in and everything connected up, and then the bumper and the grille then go on next, and that's pretty much the front end. Also replaced the bracket on the right hand wing. Okay, so you've seen it being built up. Got the bumper bar on, got the support on. We're just filling about with hoses here and routing hoses and things that need to go in the right places. Put a few extra cable ties and things, just stuff I wasn't happy with. The power steering bottle is obviously attached in there now. We'll have the radiator in. Just a point to note, if you're ever doing the radiator, there's 2 small bolts at the top, but there's also 2 wee clips in the bottom, wee crocodile clip type things. So you need to do them as well, or else the radiator will not lift out. Wee bit of issues, we'll put that plastic on wrong, so that's the feed pipe for the air intake. Took a wee bit of time. But what I've also got here is the side bits of trim. Now these are off the Renault, but it seems to be that you need to fit them with the fresher bumper. They're not actually going to go on. Remember at the start of the videos we had a problem with a bolt there, so I've taken that mounting off that fan there, which allows me to fit it. But it seems that you actually have to have holes in these here. You have to have the Renault ones on for it to fit. So that's what you've probably seen in the hyperlapse, a bit of back and forward. So I'm going to carry on. We'll get the bumper on here and get it lowered down, and we'll get it running. I've got some diesel for it and put some water in it. I'm just going to put water in first, make sure there's no leaks, and then I'll put some antifreeze into it. So just to update you a wee bit, and we'll carry on. So a few more bolts, a few more screws, and look where we're at. Everything's built up. I've left the splash guards off now, just to, I want to do a wee bit of tidying up in around there, brake pipes and things. Everything's in. I just have to connect up the preheater here for this water. Somebody had actually cut that off for some reason on the Vauxhall, so we'll take it off the Renault, and everything else is back together. Need to sort out a wee bolt for here, but other than that, lights are all working, everything's good. So I'm going to pull it outside and put a bit of water in it, let it run, put some diesel in it, and then take it for a wee scoot just to make sure that everything is working as it should. So good, that was a good day. pretty much a 7-8 hour day today, and that's it all back together. So get it outside and make sure that everything's good. Right, so outside, got some water and fluids into it. Having a few issues with, well, one issue with it cutting out every so often. The load was run down in diesel, so I'm having a flashing light in the dash, a red light, which I have to check, and I've no computer here with me. So I'm going to leave that today for the finish of part 3, and going to put the van away now in and get the scanner for it, and I'll check it again tomorrow now. But pretty much that's everything. Power steering fluid in, water in, everything else. Say it's an intermittent fault, it just keeps stopping, but I've got a red stoplight now. In saying that, I have had bits taken out of, as you can see inside, seat belts and things have been taken out and wires, so I need to check now with the scanner and start going through everything to see what is connected and what isn't connected. Obviously the airbag light with this here seat disconnected is going to be on, so I have to pick through that. But as I say, I think today that's enough for me, and we'll move on to tomorrow, getting the scanner, putting it on, starting to read out the faults. But as you can see, it's a complete van again, and I'm not going to drive it yet either. Just going to wait until I've did my fault finding with it, just to make sure. But very quiet engine, no ticking, no nothing else, so it looks good from now. But thanks for keeping following me, thanks for the new subscribers, and if you like what you're watching and you want to see, we're going to transform this van quite a bit, as I say, with the seats and bits and pieces into it, and I'm going to do the interior, a bit of wood and things changed over in the back, the ply lining. So there's a bit of work to be done, a bit of a series on it. So stick with me, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Thank you.